The search of the future will involve all these, I want it to be within 15 minutes of the school and 30 minutes of my work, but not too close to my ex-wife, but hopefully close to my future wife or whatever, right? Like you can put in all these parameters.
And we're ending on that. Yep.
I'm just saying.
You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered Podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered Podcast. I'm your host, Dwiggy, along with Crazy Uncle Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man, this was a good one. We had Michael Valdes, the CEO of LPT International and the global president of Aperture, their new luxury division. Tell them about this pod. And by the way, and the ending was... You got you and I pretty excited. It was a good answer. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. Having asked, 150 plus times, what's the one thing you'd do? He gave us one we hadn't heard. So we'll start with that. Make sure you stay till the end, kids. You're going to like it. He's got such an interesting background. He started as an investment banker, ended up running a real estate team, then a company, then the global growth leader for another brand. He's run the full experience across all things residential real estate, and a deep domain expertise on the global aspect to residential real estate. He answered some great questions on that. He also gave me the answer to where the name LPT came from, because I've been waiting on that one, and now I know. He talked about their new company they're launching, Aperture, their luxury brand. He shared with us what keeps him up at night. He had a very interesting answer to that. How agility will be important in the coming years. His thoughts on AI, because we can't do a pod and not ask about AI. He goes even deeper and talks about actual tools they're building inside his company, his thoughts on build versus buy for AI, his views on the next 5 years, and this sentence: the ones who are not listening are the ones who are winning. If you want context for that, put it in your ears, kids.
Michael, welcome to the podcast. Long overdue. In fact, I believe you and I ran into each other backstage at Inman, San Diego, and it happens to be where I am today, actually. We were chatting. I was like, Michael, what have we been doing? Why are you not on the pod? You were looking at me like, I don't know, invite me. So here we are finally.
Who's in charge of inviting, James?
I know, I was personally, but what the heck? I'm here now.
It's like, what is wrong with me?
Because Michael's normally so shy about asking for what he wants.
Yeah. You know that about me, Keith. I'm really shy.
I've heard.
That's funny. All right, Michael. So let's do quick backgrounds. Tell everybody who doesn't know you, which would be strange, but who don't know you, your background, because I've got you in real estate since 2005. That's close, but I'll let you kind of tell your backstory. And I know you've been in this crazy industry a long time.
Yeah, actually, so I got licensed in 2004, and I actually got licensed for my own portfolio because I was an investment banker with Deutsche Bank for 10 years. And then after 9/11, obviously the world changed, risk management changed, everything changed. And so I decided I wanted a break. I'm born and raised in New York, and started buying property in Miami in 2003, actually. And then in 2004, I got licensed just from my own portfolio and had about a dozen properties that I had at about that time. And then through a series of circumstances, get introduced to the first franchise owner of the Sotheby's brand, which ended up being in South Florida, owned most Caribbean islands as well. His name was Carlos Justo. He was crazy maniac. He had the first reality show for real estate, which was called $1 Million Agent, on TLC in 2004. So this was way before any of these other things going on.
21 years ago.
It was insanity, right?
God damn,
Only dealt with the top 1% of the market in Miami particularly. And so through a series of circumstances, I ended up running his team because I had no idea how he ever made money. And so we went that first year, we went from $240 million in sales. Remember, this is 21 years ago, to $430 million. With a team of 8. And so then that second year I decided,
wait, 8 people?
8 people. Why am I running this thing when I could do my own? So I actually I went on my own. I told him I was going to just do my own thing. And he says, oh, so you want to compete against me? And I said, well, if that's really the way you're looking at it, that's fine. So I jumped right. My first sale, this is so crazy, it's obnoxious when I say it, 20 years ago, was the penthouse of the Fontainebleau for $6.4 million.
Sheesh.
My second
Overachiever.
sale was Fisher Island for 12.8. So
you were rookie of the year. Got it.
Yeah, all right.
Noted.
So,
yeah.
Built from there, and it was actually a fantastic run as an agent. And then in 2010, I had a bit of a shift, and in 2010, he went bankrupt. The person who owned that franchise. And there was, I actually tried to get the franchise. And then the person who actually runs it now, who's a good friend of mine, Maya de la Vega, was the one that was successful in getting that franchise. And she's done an incredible job with that over the last 15, 16 years. But then in 2010, I actually got a call from the then CEO of Sotheby's, which was Mike Good, one of my early mentors in this business. And he said to me, have you ever thought of coming onto the corporate side? And I said, nope. And I was like, well, what are you thinking? And so he says, we've been looking for a European VP and can't find anyone. And he says, most of your clients are European. And so my mom was from Spain. I lived in London in the past. And so I said, well, what does that look like? So we started talking. Long story short, we ended up having an agreement. I moved to London in 2010.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so amazing. It was an incredible experience. I was there for just shy of 5 years, created the European network for Sotheby's, came back, started running all of the Sotheby's franchises globally. And then last 2 years that I was with Realogy at the time, now Anywhere, I ran all of the global expansion for all 7 brands. Then I met Glenn Sanford at the end of 2019, joined EXP as their chief growth officer for the last 4.5 years. And then a year and a half ago, I met Robert Palmer at the Super Bowl, which is where you were also, James, as an invitation.
I was.
In Vegas.
My invite was lost in the mail again.
Apparently,
That's
Keith, what
wonderful.
happened?
I don't know.
I think James took your ticket too.
Probably.
That's what I think happened.
I actually invited Keith to be with me on it, and they were like, "Well, there's only one king size bed," and I was like, "Well, California."
Keith, I get it.
I was like, I mean, there's that.
So that was it. So then Robert and I started chatting, and really loved the vision of what he was doing, and I joined a little over a year ago as CEO of LPT International and the president of Aperture, which is the new brand that I know we're going to chat about a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. Whew. What a journey, man. Congrats on that. That's so cool from all the way up. And hey, can I ask a question? Can I ask a follow-up, Keith? Can I jump in? I've never actually done this in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Go ahead. Go nuts.
Can you tell me, because I'm always fascinated by this recently. For the first time, we're having lots of conversations about real estate here in the U.S. versus other countries. Yeah. And you were there for 5 years expanding, Sotheby's across Europe. Like, how different is it? Like, how can you give us, frame that up and just your experience on how you grew that in a different country versus the United States, having done both?
I got to tell you, I am probably a unicorn in our industry. I'm probably the only person that can ever say this next statement. I have opened up 86 different countries for 7 different brands in my 20-year career. So
wow,
that's a lot. And so from both a franchise model and a single entity model. So both the Realogy side with a franchise model and then on the EXP and now LPT side. So to have that perspective, it's pretty unique. And I can say it's just vastly different. There is only 5 other countries outside of the United States that have any sort of an MLS. There is no sharing of information. The commission structures are vastly different. In Europe, there's usually about a 5% give or take commission. But, you look at a place like London. London is a 1% commission country. And so, you start, and unlicensed. You start thinking about this, it's sort of like these 50, 60, 70 million pound estates that get sold. It gets sold by an unlicensed individual. So there's no structure per se. One of the few countries that you would think should be unlicensed are not and highly regulated is Brazil. Brazil has about 500,000 agents that are all licensed, all regulated. And, and so the idea of real estate in different countries is so vastly different. What is unique here is the referral system. The referral system is interesting because there is a migratory pattern of money, and money shifts hands from different countries for various reasons. And so you start seeing a lot of different journeys that the money supply takes. And the U.S. is still a fairly strong investment for an individual. It does depend on where that individual is from. There's also 27 countries, conversely, 27 countries around the world that will give you residency for a real estate purchase.
So if you buy a home in that country,
global real estate is fascinating.
Yeah. On that, I have a follow-up.
Sure.
What the hell's a crumpet? I got no idea. Can we just tell me? Yeah, no,
it's a very dry piece of pastry.
It's like
you put some jam in it to hide
day old scone, basically.
Just for listeners and viewers to understand, it is about noon here in California, so Keith is fixated on lunch.
No, you asked. He had such a thoughtful answer. I didn't have anything better to come up with, so I had to make a joke. Like it's just a great answer.
Oh, but I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to rapid fires and get them out of the way. And Keith starts off.
Sure. Favorite book or podcast ever that you recommend? This is just selfish.
Look, I actually have always been a huge fan of Ed Milet. I think that there's a great array of different leaders that he brings out of different sectors. And there's always a very interesting perspective of what he's done. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. And, I think his message and deliverables is really a good one. So I'm a huge Ed Milet fan.
He's got a podcast. I don't remember.
Yeah, he's got a huge podcast.
What's it called again?
I'll look at Ed Milet Show.
Yeah, look at that. I wonder what are the odds that never mind.
Ironically, Keith, it was called Crumpets and Tea. So I don't
right.
I wish
they changed the name for it. I don't know why. Yeah.
All right. Mine is you could have lunch with someone current or historical. Who would it be and why?
So I'm a huge Henry VIII fan.
Okay.
And yes, and without the beheadings. But
I had a lot of follow-ups there, which
Does that just mean you've had a lot of wives or what? Like,
I'm a huge Tudors fan. I was a huge history fan. And I actually thought he was an extraordinary problem solver. And I think he was always thinking outside the box. Now, listen, it's like the results were a little different at times. But wait a minute.
He solved the problems.
He was a problem solver, Keith.
Hey, this falls right in line with Keith's whole idea of solving problems is trial by combat in the parking lot.
Not for marriage. That's not how you solve marriage problems. I've never, ever said.
I am not condoning beheading.
No, right. Yes.
It was
unique problem solving. It is an example of unique problem solving.
It is an example of problem solving
also,
and thinking outside the box. Right?
If it wasn't for him.
The Catholic Church won't give me an annulment. I'll start the Church of England. Why not? Come on.
We are definitely getting canceled now. So it only took us 182 episodes to get there.
Wait.
So
you're going to get canceled by Henry VIII. Come on.
No, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, if they can make a musical about it, we can talk about it on a podcast.
It's a Broadway show, for God's sake.
Yeah. Which
did you ever see the Tudors exhibit? It was at the Met, by the way, in New York for a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was so good. So,
no, it's incredible.
All right, so let's dive in.
Is never going to see you the same way.
I love it.
This is great. I love it. This is what we call pure podcast gold. So,
we found our intro.
So let's dive in here real fast. Let's start with LPT. Unless I get these numbers wrong, this is amazing. So founded in 2022.
Correct.
You mentioned Robert Palmer. And you guys, last I checked, I'm sure these numbers are different, but was 15,000 agents operating in 47 states. Is that?
So we are in all 50 states, and we're in 4 Canadian provinces. And that number is probably closer to 20, although we still are a private company, and we don't disclose our agent counts until we're public, which is next year.
Okay, awesome. By the way, congratulations. That is like amazing. And to have
really
that
funny.
short amount of time.
We were ranked number 10 by transactions last year in 3 years' time. It's never been done in our industry in that shortest period of time. And when Housing Wire actually put us on that list, by the way, we estimate we're probably around number 7 now in our current transaction count. But when they actually did that, we were at the top of their anomaly report because they didn't expect such a huge jump. And so they actually did a large amount of due diligence before they actually put us on that list. And we opened up all of our transactions to them, and they were like, wow, this is a huge jump. So it's been we've been very focused in what we've been building and the message that we're bringing out to the industry, and it seems to be resonating.
I love it. Keith and I are big abundancy mindset guys. You'll hear us in everything we do, which is why we even do this pod. We love seeing success and people succeed at things. So that is just awesome. Congratulations to you guys on all of that work.
Thank you.
I do have one question. I want to follow up on this one thing because, you're obviously CEO, you're out in the industry. Who's Robert Palmer? And like, give me a little background on him. And like,
it's not the same one that had that hit song in the 80s, is it?
Nope. Did not have a hit record, but Robert has been in an adjacent business, in the mortgage business, for over 2 decades, has built RP Funding into what is now the largest mortgage company in Central Florida. From there, saw and created Listing Power Tools, which was a brand agnostic marketing company. And then that was the impetus and the start of what was LPT. That's what LPT stands for, is Listing Power Tools. And so that was started in 2022, as you mentioned. And in that time, we have had this meteoric rise. But I first met Robert in person at that Super Bowl that you and I were at, James. And really sitting with him and his wife, we watched the game, we started conversing, and I had never met him in person. And we exchanged numbers, we had a couple of lunches together, and really just getting to know him as a visionary and a leader. It was something that to me was really exciting, and we ended up really coming together. We're very complementary in our ways of thinking. I don't know if Henry VIII would be who he would have dinner with, but never asked him, actually. I should ask him today. I should ask him.
You should. But
an incredible visionary. And, he writes his own code. He started this company, nothing. And it was, he's a true success story and somebody who's a fantastic visionary.
I love it. I love it. I love seeing people come in from other aspects of the space. I asked the question because, he wasn't known in the industry, and obviously he's come in and really done some incredible work. Keith, before I take us to the next question, did you have any follow up there? You kind of
no, I don't think so. I think we're good. Yeah.
Talk to us about then Aperture. This is new for you guys, I believe. Is that correct?
Is. Aperture is 90 days old now. Aperture was a standalone luxury brand. And here's what the genius part of this was. Imagine if a parent company owned EXP, that was number 1 by transactions, and Compass, that was number 1 by volume. Imagine if one company owned both of those brands. And that was really what we set out to build. So Aperture is a separate brand, only in the luxury space, separate model. It is not a capped model. It is a model like a traditional luxury brokerage would be. And so we launched 90 days ago. We were, to our knowledge, the first independent luxury-focused brokerage to ever launch internationally at inception. So we launched in 18 states and 4 international destinations, which was London, Lisbon, Toronto, and St. Martin. And St. Martin might seem like an odd choice, but we actually met with Elie Saab, the fashion designer in Europe, and he gave us the worldwide rights to his first development, which was in the Caribbean. So these were 12 luxury villas, of which we've already sold 4.
I would like to see those villas.
Those are amazing.
If that is it on open house this weekend, or are you guys no?
Just come on, fly on down.
I have a lot of questions on this because this is really fascinating to me. So Separate brand.
Separate
I'm
brand.
assuming, I shouldn't assume. Let me ask you as a question, James. So different qualifications to be part of the brand?
Indeed.
Like, do you have to
Yes.
have a certain, can you go
That is
down that
correct.
just for context?
Sure. So it's different by geographic location, but we're looking for a minimum level of production in the luxury space. And we're looking for roughly 3 times the average sales price of the local MLS as the average sales price of that agent's production. And here's the beauty of it. Most of the other luxury brands started the same way. They started by saying you have to qualify to be in here. And then what happens? Economics happen. And you cannot sort of like survive by just doing that. You could be a newly licensed agent right now, and you're carrying a Sotheby's card or a Compass card or a Christie's card or a Douglas Elliman card. You're carrying that card. There's no qualifications whatsoever. Here's the beauty of it: the idea that we can actually have the qualifications on the luxury side. Why? Because if somebody doesn't qualify for the Aperture brand, we could actually house them at LPT. We have a path to Aperture on the LPT side where we have no minimums, where an agent can come in, where we can actually coach them up, where we can actually sort of help increase their average sales price, give them luxury training, and then come back and visit 6 to 9 months and see if they do qualify. But here's now what's the message to that consumer is that anyone with an Aperture card has earned the right to carry it.
You know, I'm assuming different signage, different everything is
different brokers. Yeah. Everything is different. So when we actually look at this, we had a great story. There was one of our office locations is actually in Big Sky, Montana. And don't know how much you guys know about Big Sky. But
I know very well.
It's beautiful. Huge sort of like sales. So we had the number one luxury agent. Her name was Martha Johnson. She did $500 million last year with 46 transactions. It's crazy. She moved over. By the way, it's just her and her son, Charlie. That's it. That's her tea. So
does she want to adopt one more son?
What's that?
So she want to adopt one more son? Yeah.
And we've had about 10 other agents follow her and join us at Aperture. And so we have a strong staple now there. So we probably had about, in the last 90 days, we've probably had about 100 founding agents come over, and that represents about $1.5 billion of production. And in the last 30 days, we've already closed about $100 million worth of business on the Aperture side.
So I've got a question because this is in our sort of leadership track of our pod. And how did you like, I assume that wasn't just a layup discussion, right? Like launching a whole separate brand, how to put the parameters around it.
Guess what's so funny? It was because of my luxury background. Robert had already had the plans to do this, but while I was sitting in the competition, he didn't want to unveil it because he thought I would be the only one that can actually beat him to the punch. And so that had the cloud-based brokerage background and the luxury background. And so when we joined forces, we talked about it, and he was going to do it post-IPO. But we decided to launch it pre-IPO because it was going to tell a story much better. And it becomes something in this space where you're not dependent on interest rates or tariffs, and most deals are done in cash, and most deals are international buyers coming. So it was almost insulated. And they complement each other in whatever socio or economic climate you're living in. So it's your head.
I'm assuming that would it be different conferences or same company conference, just different tracks? Like, how do you?
Great question. So we are going to have our remember, we're 90 days old, so there will be separate events that will eventually be happening on the Aperture side. We have our big event happening in October this year on the LPT side. So we will have the Aperture agents joining us there. And it's really funny because I host a call every 2 weeks with all of our Aperture agents around the world. And so it's this sense of community that's a true community that really has happened. And so there was a few calls ago where I had every time zone represented. And it was around the globe. And that was really kind of cool.
That's really cool.
I actually, like 90 days in, it was kind of cool. Yeah, I had somebody that was in Hawaii at 7 a.m. And then I had somebody that was sitting in Japan, who's one of our London agents, but she was sitting in Japan and it was 1 a.m. for her.
Wow.
And it was like,
That's
this
crazy.
is cool. This is really cool. You know,
That's got to feel really good to do that, right out of the gate, especially. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right, I got a question I have to ask, but I'm going to ask it a little differently because I find this one, because you're in two completely different markets, and I'm saying that with luxury is very different than bread and butter America. So we've been asking this of all the different leadership, and I'm not going to go on a soapbox, but the question is, private listings. What's LPT's stance on that? I'm following up because you have Aperture, and that market is very different. That's the Taylor Swift sort of people of the world. First, what's your position on it? And then I'd love to hear a little more detail on your thoughts around it, having two sort of very distinct markets.
So I think because of the two different brands, our answer actually remains the same. We are there for whatever the consumer wants to do. That's where we are. If the consumer, again, on the luxury side, might be an instance where for privacy reasons or anything else, they would want a private exclusive, then wonderful. We do have capabilities with some of our deliverables that we are doing to get that property to those possible consumers. We are using CTV technology. We're also seeing how we actually pinpoint ultra high net worth households that receive that commercial through that streaming platform for an Aperture agent somewhere in the world. That campaign has been running now for a couple of months now, and it's really proven very successful. So if there is an appetite and a capacity for that, we really are just about serving the consumer.
All right. So I wanted to ask this, you've seen, this conversation is really fascinating for me because you have such a different perspective on, because you're here, but you've seen the rest of the world. So, the changes in the business the past 24 months, since October, since October of 2023. And, here we are basically 2 years later. Like what keeps you up at night? Like, what are you concerned about from where we've gone to where we are and then where we're headed? Is there things that you're paying attention to that you're trying to make sure your agents are aware of? Like, what keeps Michael, up at night going, I'm really worried about this or potentially where this could be?
Look, I think it's the agents really buying into the noise. Right. And I think it comes from the amount of time that you might be in the business. A lot of the agents that joined during COVID, this better than I. A lot of them are not here any longer because they were no different than a barista at Starbucks. They would take in an order. Right. And it's like the zeros were a little bit different of what they were getting paid. But, you listed something at lunchtime and by dinner you had 7 offers and, you were done and moving on to the next one. And so that was not a real economy. We have a cyclical market, which has ebbs and flows. And if somebody is not trained properly for that, then they're going to be leaving the industry too soon. And they could be very talented, but they're going to be leaving the industry too soon, because they're not used to a cyclical market. I think when you have an opportunity to truly train somebody, to truly be able to understand what there is, and listen, the consolidation that's been happening in our industry will continue to do so. In my opinion, there's going to be a lot of these independents that will not be able to survive. They simply won't. And we're not that mom and pop shop any longer where somebody walks into someone's office down the road and they want to see what's available in the neighborhood. Information is everywhere. And so there is no differentiation for that independent broker to truly survive in this market. So the consolidation is one of those major milestones that I think will continue in our business. I also think that the messaging behind that then needs to go to the consumer. Why would it be interesting for that person to go and join another company? And then what does that mean to the consumer? Right? The consumer who is sort of like afraid of the big corporations because they're not going to be to be handled in the best way. How do you do your point of differentiation in the marketplace?
Sure. Yeah.
Wouldn't that
That's a really
wouldn't
good
that
comment.
wouldn't that point of differentiation be at the agent level though? Meaning,
I think
like,
that, sure. I mean, you always do business with the person you like and trust, right? Obviously, but that agent needs to have an advantage for that consumer base, because that agent will only have their own sphere of influence, right? That's going to dry up at some point. So you need to sort of, how do you get your net larger? Your net larger will come from your brokerage, from other associations you might be with other affiliations. And so when you start doing that, that story matters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So your position, just so I'm going to kind of bundle this, you think big companies are going to get bigger and smaller companies are going to have a much harder time surviving. And not even just because of the consumer change, but just technology, the cost margins, all of that kind of coupled into it.
Absolutely. Just think about the everyday cost of doing business. I mean, let's not even talk about sort of like the lawsuits that happened, in the last couple of years. But
let's not.
What lawsuits? What do you mean?
I mean, like, think about like E&O insurance and things of that nature. Right. And then, God forbid, something, you have to use that E&O insurance. Now it's gone through the roof, right? So now how do you protect yourself? Now, how do you actually get that agent that's going to be your loss leader that you're on a 95-5 split with? How are you actually keeping the lights on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of like, at some point it becomes a loss leader.
Yeah. I think, just to put a small twist on what you said, mostly because, and I say this, I feel like on every episode, but like if the three of us just get on and agree, like it's a pretty boring conversation, right? So I agree with you sort of.
Sure.
What I think is going to matter a tremendous amount over this next 5 years is the quality of the operator. And more so than independent versus not independent, franchise versus non-franchise. I think if you're a really good operator and you stay independent, you can probably figure it out. You're going to have to go hyper local. You're going to have to find the riches and the niches, but there are ways really good operators at an independent local level can be successful.
I don't disagree with that, but I think that then it becomes their definition of success, right? If you
there's
want
a scale
to
issue,
operate,
right?
absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm looking at a global perspective. So if you're operating as a hyper local indie, you're absolutely right. Sure, they can have a great business, right? But that may not be any different than like a really high producing team at that point.
Sure, right? Yeah. Interesting. Anything else you're worried about in the next 24 months?
Listen, I think it's the ability for someone to be agile, meaning like both from an agent level and at corporate level. Because as you're going through, we don't know what we don't know yet, right? Who would 5 years ago, who would have predicted the last 2 years in our industry?
Yeah, you know what I mean? That was not on the bingo card.
No, right? So
most of the last 5 years was not.
Will bring. And so it's the idea of being agile. And I think a lot of the legacy brands will probably have a little harder time for that. I think that there's, a lot of debt on their balance sheets. There's a lot of, it's harder to move when you've got a lot on your balance sheet and you can't pivot as easily. I think that's where, the agility of a small company, we have zero debt on our balance sheet. So it makes us really, really agile. And so there's a different sort of thing to that, but we'll see where it all ends up, right? We can sort of like do this interview back in 3 years' time.
Noted.
That's probably how long it'll take for you to invite me back after these come.
No way.
No. I love it. This is all good conversation.
I think, tell me if this, I think this industry is a little addicted to fear. I think we're always worried about the next line over the hill. Yeah. And there always is one. But it's never quite as big and loud as we make it out to be, right?
It's so true. Like Robert says, the best time to prepare for a bust is in the boom, and the other way around, right? Yeah. And so look, the market will change in our favor, but if you actually start shifting and preparing for it once it does, you're too late.
Yeah, you're too late.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, this one I like to ask because I'm sort of our affordability wonk on this podcast. It's something that I lose sleep over. I'm very worried that we're going to miss out on a whole generation of first-time home buyers, which means we miss out on a whole generation of trade-up buyers and the domino effects that come along with that. So if I made you the housing czar of the United States of America, and your one job was to tackle affordability with your deep connections in Wall Street and other places, how would you do it?
Look, I think that's such an interesting question, and you're right. It's a common problem, not just for anyone in the industry, but for society overall. And it's a hard one, right? I mean, there are some simple solutions that I think should be done tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of office buildings that are sitting vacant across the nation. And there's a lot of red tape to try to do some conversion of that into housing. There should be an ability to show within a density of a population how that can solve a lot of this housing issues. And I think that there's a commonality that there's a lot of that just around the country. And so if we were able to transpose a lot of these office buildings that are just sitting, again, just vacant, that we can actually have a dent in that. I don't think it's a solution, but I think it's a dent and a movement in the right direction.
Yeah.
Do you have let me follow up on this. Can you give me a perspective of, I'm going to bring this back to global with your experience. Does the way that our country operate, or let's just say federal or state governments, is it the same in other countries? Are other countries, their governments much more involved in housing policy or providing housing and things? Is there any parallel between this, or we're worse or better, or any perspective you can give on that?
It's such a huge question. I mean, there are so many governments that do take care of all of the residents and do socialized housing and things of that nature. But then, they also do socialized medicine and things of that sort. A lot of European countries exist that way. There's but again, it's like, every country is so vast.
Every does a little bit different.
Right?
Anything that stuck out that you think would be good? Like that you're like, this is an interesting thing that I've noticed in this particular country that I think works?
I think you have some Northern European countries like Norway and Sweden. They have one of the lowest homelessness rates in their countries. And that's because they have several social programs to deal with it. And so there's some interesting programs that they do in those countries that I've seen, and I think is actually incredibly thought provoking.
Yeah, a fair bit of that's supported by their sovereign wealth fund, right?
Yeah,
they discovered oil, and they've made a conscious decision to reinvest that as a government.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. Super interesting. I read when we started, the U.S. is, whether you agree with it or not, it's been floated a sovereign wealth fund. They recently bought some shares in Intel. The government did, which is kind of wild. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell are we doing? And then I stumbled into that, and it was very interesting to read more about other countries.
You're absolutely right, Keith. Yep.
Yeah. Let's shift gears, because you can't talk to someone today without asking them a question about artificial intelligence. What's your view on it personally? What's LPT doing? Like, is this just the next big hype cycle and it's the metaverse, or is this really the internet and we're at the cutting edge of something different?
I think the latter. It is a part of our, imagine, when's the last time you used ChatGPT?
Right before the podcast. This interview with you.
Me too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a daily part of our existence now. 3 years ago, didn't exist, right? So now it's part of what we do. And because of that, it actually makes life simpler in many, many ways. It allows us to be more efficient with our time, and it allows us to serve more people, whatever our sort of mission statement is, right? Whether it's grow my company, I want to spend more time with my family, I want to do, whatever that is, that actually AI allows you to do that. Because what does it give you? It gives you the gift of time back. And so we've got a lot of AI that's already integrated in both LPT and Aperture. We have, for example, we have a full marketing deliverable that any agent can just upload their photo and a few photos of the property. And you've got everything from single property magazines to your brochure, everything that you need on your marketing deliverables is done for you and then sent to our print shop, which we own in Orlando, and in your doorstep within 48 hours. So there's a lot of efficiency that happens. It's not just that. We have a lot of AI deliverables in almost every aspect of our business operations.
So when you're thinking about AI for LPT, is it the common, Harvard Business Review question, right? Build versus buy. Yeah. There's a lot of tools that are coming out that are sort of out of the box, and you can also build your own. Which way have you guys leaned in when you're thinking about it?
I think we have built our own AI that has served us very, very well. But I think it's a combination. I think it's like you can't build fast enough, right? Because the technology is going to be outdated by the time you build it.
Yeah.
And so it is a combination of build what's proprietary so that you have a moment of differentiation for agents and in the industry itself. But then also go and buy anything that's going to make it even better.
Right. So if it's a key value prop for your company, we gotta own that, right? Like 100%. We gotta build that ourselves. But if I find a great, email tool that isn't
all day long, and we're
in,
big on, our big sort of tagline is agent choice, and so we have a lot of like different CRMs that they can use. And sort of like everybody's like, what's the best CRM? It's the one that you use.
That's a fact.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Any other tech stuff?
Sorry.
No, just
keep going.
Any other technology pieces? Like, I feel like sometimes, I know I'm guilty of this. Sometimes all I talk about is AI, but there's a bunch of cool stuff that doesn't involve AI. What about tech in the future outside of artificial intelligence?
Look, I think that's a great question. It's the idea of seeing what makes your life easier and then making your business more efficient. I think one of the great things that we've also done is that Robert is a self-taught coder because he needed a certain piece of software for his mortgage company and couldn't afford it 20 years ago, whatever it was, right? So
I love that.
Went into Barnes and Nobles and bought every book on coding.
Coding for dummies.
Went in and taught himself how to code. And, he tells the story several times. It's a great story because it goes back to that thing of finding the answer, right?
Right.
Figuring it out. And now he actually thinks it's a great gift because he codes now just to relax.
And or can you imagine like telling your engineers what you want to do and then they say it's not possible and he's like, really? And he goes and codes the shit and like makes it. It's like, it is,
Yeah, look at that. I built it over the weekend.
James, that's what's so funny. It's sort of like he'll build like the first part of it because it's in his head and say, okay, and then give it to the team of developers and say, this is what I want. And then it comes back and it's like, that's not the code I wrote. Yeah. And he'll know, right? I mean, that's sort of cool.
Yeah.
So there is that thing where, we've seen it now, Keith, in our accounting operations efficiency, getting our transaction cost per transaction down really, really low because we're using AI for a lot of things. And so it's incredible when you start looking at this.
It's funny when I think about it. I think agents and really humanity is going to I think many, many, many people will actually not get on the AI train on purpose, but the tools that they use every day will, and it'll manifest itself in their life in different ways. Like I'm not someone. You don't have to be an AI enthusiast. If you just hang around long enough, you will end up on the train because it's like there were agents, but you can get a first mover advantage. We've been interviewing a bunch of teams on our agent track. And there's a sort of theme through some of them from SEO. They started early in SEO when it was early, got domain expertise and dominance in that niche. And then now 20 years later, they're number one team in the world for X and the number one team in the state for Y, right? Yep. I see AI similarly in that you don't have to get on the train. You do not. And you can be fine. You can be a great agent and you can have a long career. But there will be some people who get first mover advantages that will have unparalleled access, right? Like if you can get ChatGPT to, when I ask it, who's the best real estate agent in Dallas, Texas, if you can get GPT to say you somehow, some way, right? That's a win, right? You will win more than some other folks. So I think I'm very guilty of this, of saying, it's AI or die, right? And I got to relax on that a little bit.
Look, you're actually bringing up a good point, which, a lot of people are using ChatGPT almost as a search engine. Right?
They are.
Oh,
tell me the best.
I do everything with it.
Right?
Yeah.
So
everything with it.
I don't think a lot of people are actually really seeing it in that manner, that ChatGPT is becoming the new search engine.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
And what happened with the information? Where does it gather the information from, right? From the internet.
Yeah.
And that's how it actually starts creating that. So to your point, Keith, yes, even if somebody sort of says, I'm not going to touch AI, you by osmosis will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like saying I'm not going to, it'd be like someone saying I'm not going to touch the internet, right? Well, sure, you're not. But you will eventually.
Oh, of course you will.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's interesting. Keith made this it really stuck with me, and we're having these conversations, and I've seen some MLSs come out about how they, are going to give these options to suppress days on market and price changes. And Keith went on a soapbox like 4 or 5 episodes ago. But he's like, "This is the stupidest conversation I've ever had in my life," because you don't think ChatGPT isn't actually like aggregating all of that data already. It's literally looking at when you post a property online, when you change the price, it's going to have that too.
100%.
Which led to a question that I had, and this is not for this podcast, but it was, actually, I'll leave this into a final question for you. And then Keith will wrap us up.
Yep.
I had this question the other day about what is the future of the MLS if ChatGPT is aggregating everything everywhere at any point in time.
Not and if, so because, but go ahead.
No, the question I'm going to turn this into is, like, over the next 5 years, take AI, take MLS, association, like whatever it is, what do you think what's your crystal ball on where you think things will go? Like, and you guys are you're going to go IPO, you've got lots of insight, you've got, the founder is a coder, which I think is such a cool story. Like, what is your guys' crystal ball over the next 5 years?
Look, here's something you just mentioned triggered something. You just asked about the MLSs and the information that people are going to be getting, and that ChatGPT is collecting all this information. There's no MLS outside of the United States. And when you start sort of thinking about the fact that the internet is the great equalizer and that information is the great equalizer, when you start asking ChatGPT, hey, what did this house in Vauxhall in London sell for last, and what's on the market now? And you're going to have a whole list of things that's going to aggregate all of because right now in the UK, you talked about private listings earlier, every agency has their own private exclusives. Yep. And so when you sort of say to ChatGPT, tell me what's on the market in W2 postal code in London, it's going to aggregate everything because it has it.
Yeah. You don't need an MLS.
It's going to be your de facto MLS, right?
Well, take it even further, Michael, if I could piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about search of the future, it's going to be, I got a buyer who's pre-approved for this, wants to be within a quarter mile of a park that's bigger than X, right? You could take your prompting that you're using for AI right now and create search prompts in and around that. And it will go out and do the work and just bring you back every property that fits that buy box. So if you think like investors have a buy box, right? Well, so do buyers of regular homes. It's just really different. It's more nuanced and more individualized, right? Yeah. But the search of the future will involve all these. I want it to be within 15 minutes of the school and 15 minutes, 30 minutes of my work, but not too close to my ex-wife, but hopefully close to my future wife or whatever, right? Like you can put in all these parameters.
And we're ending on that. Yep.
I'm just saying, like, the search of the future can be so contextualized down to the person that it almost will. What it reminds me of, this is sort of a clumsy analogy, but there's whole parts of the world that skipped landlines, right? So they didn't have phones in every home.
This is a really good analogy.
85% of the people have cell phones, and cell phones are just ubiquitous and everywhere, right? I think there's a possibility that things tend to die slower than we think, and MLS is highly institutionalized, will be here for a long time.
Yeah.
But like if I were a buyer's agent in London, I would just be ChatGPTing the hell out of my search.
100%.
Right? Because that
by the way, buyer's agents don't exist in London, but It's sort of
Well, okay, yeah, but maybe I should go over there and start that, right? Because that's an inefficiency in the marketplace.
They don't say buyer's agents.
Yeah, sure.
Hope everybody's listening to how different the world is when we have these conversations. You know.
All right, James, I hogged that one.
It's funny. I was on ChatGPT yesterday, and I have a round number birthday coming up next year, and so I
30?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I had ChatGPT come up with suggestions anywhere in the world, top 10 suggestions for an interesting place to throw a birthday. And it was intriguing what it came up with. And then we started sort of like shortening the list. But it did everything from like Iceland to Morocco to Mexico City to New York. It was like really cool stuff. And then I started investigating things, and it was like, whoa, some of this stuff is really cool. Right.
Yeah.
And so now we have a short list.
Are you emailing these invites?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll get you my email address right after we're done with the show. Yeah. I can't wait to be there. Yeah.
All right. Keith, take us out.
If you were an agent or a brokerage, since you're both, what's the one thing you'd implement today to help your business for the rest of 2025 into 2026?
Can only be one.
What's that?
Can only be one. It's got to be one thing. Yeah, we want to have just like one nugget that people can walk away with.
Listen, I'm going to go old school. It's mindset. I mean, it really is. There's such a chaos happening in our industry right now. The people that are winning are the ones that are not listening to the noise. And it is. I got to tell you, man, it is on
a good response
on both sides of the brands, right? So on both price points, those that are not listening are the ones that are winning. And you can get caught up on all this noise, and like those people that have like, they watch the news every morning with a cup of coffee and, by the time it's 10 a.m., they're pissed off because everything that's gone wrong in the world. It's like, here's a solution. Don't watch the news in the morning. Yeah. It's like, the news will get to you.
Right. Yeah. Don't watch the news. Listen to the number one real estate podcast in the world, Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered.
There you are. I love it. So that's it.
It's a really good comment, man. No one's actually said that. We've had sphere of influence a lot. I love the fact you went to mindset. Like, you are in complete control over how you really want to handle your day. I love that. It's a great piece of advice.
It is. It is. Turn
the
noise
reminder.
down. Yep.
And boy, with all the dumpster fire of social media, like, you can just turn all that shit off too while you're at it. So, hey man,
we will be sharing our shorts. Yeah.
Oh, guys, I had so much fun with you both. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. We'll have you on again soon.
And congrats on the success. Genuinely, we love seeing people succeed, and obviously all the best on the IPO and everything coming up for you guys, and we'll have you back on the show next year. So
thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks, Keith.
All right,
thanks,
guys.
Thanks, Michael.
Appreciate you.
Take care, man.
Yeah.
They say consistency is the key. That's why we're here every week, sometimes twice. So subscribe. That way you won't miss a thing, and you too can be consistent.